The stars burned bright outside the ship window, a million tiny lights in endless blackness. Captain Ryan Cole sat in his pilot seat, his hands steady on the controls. The hum of the reactor filled the cabin like a heartbeat. He had been traveling alone for 12 days, charting a distant sector never touched by human eyes. Everything was calm until the alarms began to scream. A flash tore across the ship's sensors. A beam of plasma cut through the void. The whole craft shook violently. Lights flickering, consoles sparking. Ryan cursed under his breath and pulled the throttle. The navigation system was gone, the reactor losing power fast. He sent a distress signal but knew there was no one near enough to hear it. The next moment, his ship hit the atmosphere of an unknown planet. Fire surrounded him. The hull glowed red and the crash alarms filled the air. The ground rushed up like a living wall, then impact. A deafening crash ripped through metal and sand. Silence followed, thick and heavy. Ryan groaned, pushing open the broken cockpit glass. Heat and smoke surrounded him. He stumbled out, boots sinking into strange red dust. The sky above was a deep orange color, filled with clouds that crackled with purple lightning. His ship lay half buried, wings torn apart. He checked his communicator, dead. He took a breath and looked around. The landscape was endless desert, broken only by sharp crystal formations that rose like teeth from the ground. The air smelled faintly of iron and heat. His training told him to stay close to the wreckage. But something deep inside whispered that he was not alone. A distant roar broke the silence. Engines, not human but close. He turned and saw dust clouds approaching fast. Hoverbikes. 6, no, 8 of them, sleek, black, and deadly. Each rider wore shining armor shaped to their form, their faces hidden behind masks with glowing red eyes, the figures dismounted with precision. Rifles aimed directly at him. Ryan raised his hands slowly. "I'm not your enemy," he said, his voice calm. They spoke a language he didn't recognize, sharp and rhythmic. The leader stepped forward, tall, fierce, her armor carved with golden patterns. Her eyes burned like molten silver through the mask. She gestured, and 2 soldiers seized him. Forcing him to his knees, they searched him, pulling the communicator and sidearm from his belt. One of them said a word that echoed through the desert. "Valkyra." The leader turned her head slightly, as if listening to distant orders, then she nodded. Ryan was chained with glowing cuffs that tightened at his movement. They loaded him onto a hover transport. His ship left smoking behind him. The journey across the wasteland felt endless. Red storms raged in the distance, and great machines moved across the horizon like mechanical beasts. When they finally reached the city, Ryan's eyes widened. Massive gates opened into a world of black steel and fire. Towers made of metal bones rose into the sky. The streets were full of armored women, each one carrying weapons larger than themselves. Everywhere he looked, there were banners showing a golden crest, a sword wrapped in flames. And everywhere he heard the same chant from the crowd, "Valkyra! Valkyra!" They dragged him through the city square, where citizens gathered to see the creature that fell from the sky. Some threw sand, others stared in silence. He could feel their curiosity and their fear. At last he was brought to a grand hall, its floor made of polished obsidian. A massive throne stood at the center, carved from black stone and edged in gold. The air shimmered with energy, and every warrior in the hall knelt as a figure entered. She was tall, powerful, her armor gleaming like liquid fire. Her face was uncovered and sharp, proud, beautiful. Her eyes met Ryan's, cold yet curious. She stepped forward, and the room fell completely silent. "This is the outsider," one of the guards said, bowing. He fell from the sky as the queen studied him, her gaze cutting through him like a blade. "A male," she said slowly, her voice deep and commanding. The word seemed strange in her mouth, like something half forgotten. Ryan felt the weight of her stare. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. "I mean no harm," he said. "I'm just a traveler." Her lips curved into a faint, unreadable smile. "Traveler," she repeated softly. "You entered our war world without permission. You will fight or you will die." He looked around. Everyone was watching, waiting. The queen's eyes burned brighter. "Take him to the arena of trials," she ordered. "Let the gods decide if he is worthy to breathe our air." The guards pulled him away as the queen turned her back, her cloak of crimson silk trailing behind like fire. As the doors closed behind him, Ryan looked once more at her figure. Regal, merciless and beautiful, he didn't know it yet. But the moment he crashed here, his life, and hers, had already changed forever. The war world had found its first human, and the Queen would soon find the one thing she had never lost before, her heart. The air inside the palace tunnels was heavy and cold. The guards pushed Ryan forward, their weapons glowing faintly with blue energy, his wrists still bound by magnetic cuffs that pulsed every few seconds. He could hear the rumble of a massive crowd ahead, the echo of chanting that grew louder with every step. When the iron gates opened, Ryan saw the arena of trials. It was enormous, a perfect circle carved from black stone, surrounded by thousands of spectators. The seats were filled with armored women, warriors of every color and rank. Their voices merged into a single roar that shook the air. The guards shoved him into the sand-covered floor. He stumbled but stayed on his feet. He looked around. Tall walls rose all around him, energy shields sparking faintly at the top to prevent escape. High above, on a throne carved into the arena wall, sat Queen Valkyra. Her armor gleamed like living fire, gold and black merging into something both elegant and deadly. Her eyes watched him closely. No mercy in them, only curiosity. A horn sounded, deep and thunderous. The Queen rose from her seat, lifting her spear high. Her voice carried across the arena like thunder. "Outsider from the sky," she said. "You fell upon our sacred land. You are given a choice. Fight for your life or die by my hand." The crowd erupted again, chanting her name. "Valkyra, Valkyra." Ryan's heart pounded. He had no weapon, no armor, only his training and instincts. From a gate across the arena, a huge metal door lifted, revealing a creature unlike anything he had seen. It was 3 meters tall. With 4 arms and scales that shimmered like oil, its eyes glowed red and its roar made the ground tremble. Ryan took a slow breath, his mind racing. He remembered his military training. Observe, predict, adapt, the creature charged, swinging a massive blade made of bone. Ryan dodged just in time, sand flying beneath his boots. He grabbed a broken spear from the ground, the remains of some old battle. He rolled under the creature's next strike and thrust the spear into its leg. The beast howled, spinning with fury. He ran, using the arena pillars for cover. Valkyra leaned forward, watching him with a strange expression. Most prisoners died in seconds. But this one, this human, was moving with precision and control. Ryan climbed a nearby rock ledge, waited for the creature to come close, then jumped, driving the spear straight into the soft spot under its jaw. The monster fell backward, shaking the ground as it collapsed. Silence followed, then a roar unlike anything before. The crowd stood screaming his victory. Ryan stood over the beast, chest heaving, sand and blood on his face. He dropped the broken spear and looked up at the Queen. Her gaze was unreadable. Her generals whispered among themselves. But she lifted her hand, silencing them instantly. "Enough," she said. "He has proven his strength." The guards hesitated. Unsure what to do, Valkyra stepped down from her throne, walking slowly toward him. Every step echoed across the silent arena. Her armor caught the sunlight, casting golden reflections across the sand. She stopped a few feet away, staring at him as if trying to see inside his soul. "What are you?" she asked quietly. "No creature fights like that." Ryan swallowed hard. "Human," he said simply. "From Earth." The word meant nothing to her, but her eyes softened for the first time. "Earth," she repeated, testing the sound. Then she turned to her generals, her voice suddenly sharp again. "He is not to be executed," she commanded. "He belongs to me." Gasps spread through the crowd. One general stepped forward, bowing deeply. "My queen, it is forbidden. No outsider may live within the palace." Valkyra's expression hardened. "Do you question your queen?" she said, her tone icy. The general fell silent. Bowing lower, Ryan stood motionless, unsure whether to feel relieved or afraid. The Queen gestured and the guards released his chains. The magnetic cuffs fell away with a hiss. Valkyra turned back to him. "From this day," she said, "you will stay in my fortress under my command." Her eyes locked with his. "You will not attempt to flee. You will not raise a weapon against my people. Break these terms and I will end your life myself." He nodded slowly. "Understood." For a brief second, something flickered in her expression. Not kindness, but interest, a spark of curiosity she hadn't felt in years. She turned away, her cape flowing behind her as the guards escorted him out. As they left the arena, the crowd continued chanting her name. Ryan glanced back one last time at the Queen standing alone in the arena light. She had spared him, but he knew it wasn't mercy. It was something deeper. something dangerous. Somewhere between curiosity and destiny, the undefeated queen of a war world had just claimed her first human, and Ryan Cole, lost explorer of Earth, had just stepped into a history that would change two worlds forever. The days passed slowly inside the queen's fortress. The walls were carved from black stone, lined with glowing runes that pulsed like veins of fire. Ryan was given a small chamber high in one of the towers, guarded night and day by silent warriors. From his narrow window, he could see the endless city below. Towers, forges, training yards, and columns of soldiers marching in perfect rhythm. The world outside looked like it was built for war and nothing else. Each morning he was escorted to the palace courtyard where Valkyra's soldiers trained. They moved like living machines, their armor reflecting the sunlight. Their discipline impressed him, but their silence frightened him more. None of them ever spoke to him, only watched, always ready. Valkyra herself appeared rarely, but when she did, the entire fortress seemed to come alive. The air changed when she entered. Her presence was like the sun, distant but impossible to ignore. She watched the soldiers train and sometimes stopped to study Ryan. Her eyes were sharp, but there was always a question behind them, a question she never asked. One evening she summoned him to her private hall. The room was vast, filled with banners from past battles and weapons hung like trophies. Valkyra stood near a holographic table showing the map of her world. "You've been silent," she said, her tone calm but firm. "Are all humans so quiet?" Ryan gave a small smile. "Only when surrounded by an army." She tilted her head slightly, a hint of amusement in her eyes. "Tell me of your world, human," she said. "Why do your people fight? Why do you travel the stars?" He thought for a moment before answering. "We fight to survive," he said. "We explore because we have to know what's beyond the next horizon." Her gaze softened just a little. "Survive," she repeated. "That word has meaning here too." Valkyra explained that her world, Oralis, had been born from war long ago. Ancient machines reshaped their species, erasing men and leaving only women bred for strength. Every generation fought the next. Every clan seeking dominance. Peace, she said, is a word that no one remembers. Ryan listened quietly, his mind trying to understand. "You don't have peace," he said slowly, "because no one's ever seen another way." She looked at him with a strange expression. "Another way?" He nodded. "Back on Earth, we learned that survival isn't just about killing. It's about protecting, building, understanding. Maybe if your people saw what unity looks like, they'd stop fighting for power." Valkyra turned away, walking toward the window that overlooked her city. "You speak like a philosopher," she said. "But here words are weak. Only strength commands respect." Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Then let me show you that strength isn't only in battle." That night, he worked in secret on the fragments of his crashed ship. The Queen had allowed his tools to be moved into a small workshop. Guarded, of course, using damaged circuits and broken cores, he began rebuilding a small energy converter. It was old human tech, harmless, but powerful enough to light half the palace. When Valkyra saw it days later, her eyes widened slightly. "You did this alone?" Ryan nodded. "It's not a weapon," he said. "It's a generator. It can power your defenses, maybe even your city, without burning fuel or blood." For a long time she said nothing. Her hand brushed the smooth metal surface. "You build instead of destroy," she said quietly. Strange. The following weeks changed everything. Valkyra ordered her engineers to study the human machine. Ryan worked beside them, teaching what he could. The palace that once looked at him with suspicion now watched him with cautious respect. But not everyone was pleased. In the shadows of the War Council, a general named Riza, Valkyra's second-in-command, whispered to the others. "The Queen grows weak," she said. "She listens to the words of a male, a myth. He clouds her judgment." Riza's words spread through the ranks like poison. Meanwhile, Ryan and Valkyra grew closer. She began to ask about Earth, the oceans, the cities, the music. He told her of sunrises that painted the sky in gold, of laughter shared around fires, of humans who built towers not for war but for hope. One evening, after a long day of repairs, Valkyra stood beside him on the balcony. The wind carried the scent of metal and rain. "You make me question everything I know," she said. "All my life I believed power was the only truth." Ryan looked at her and said softly, "Power means nothing if it stands alone. Even the strongest need someone to fight for." Their eyes met, the warrior queen and the lost human. For a heartbeat, the distance between their worlds disappeared. But far below, in the dark corners of the city, Riza's spies watched, transmitting every word, plotting the Queen's downfall. When Ryan returned to his quarters that night, he noticed his door slightly open. His instincts screamed. He entered slowly, finding a small device hidden under his bed, a transmitter still warm. Someone was tracking him. The next morning he went to warn Valkyra, but the palace was already in chaos. Sirens wailed, soldiers ran through the halls. The horizon burned red. The outer walls were under attack. Riza had made her move. She had leaked the Queen's alliance with the outsider to the rival clans, claiming Valkyra had betrayed their honor for a human. The warworld was about to explode once more. As Ryan stood beside Valkyra in the command tower, the Queen's eyes burned with fury. "You showed me peace," she said, her voice trembling with rage and pride. "Now it seems we must fight to earn it." Outside, lightning lit the sky, armies clashed in the distance, and the sound of war returned to the land that had never forgotten it. But this time, it would not be a war between clans. It would be a war for truth, for unity, and for the bond between a human and a queen who dared to dream of something greater than conquest. The skies over Oralis burned red that night. Thunder rolled across the Iron Mountains as the rebel clans marched toward the capital. The air trembled with the roar of engines and the scream of plasma fire. From the palace tower, Ryan could see lines of fire stretching across the desert, an army like none he had ever seen. Queen Valkyra stood at the command balcony, her armor gleaming with crimson light. Her jaw was set, her eyes cold. Yet somewhere deep inside that calm fury there was something else. Pain. The betrayal had come from within her own council. General Riza had opened the city gates for the invaders, claiming it was time for a new rule. One without the Queen, one without weakness, one without the human. Ryan stood beside Valkyra, scanning the tactical display. "They're attacking from 3 sides," he said. "If they break the southern wall, they'll flood the inner city." Valkyra nodded, her hand tightening on the rail. "Then we hold the north and bleed them dry," she said. "We fight until the last breath." The battle began before dawn. The sound of metal and plasma filled the air. Soldiers clashed in the burning streets. Valkyra fought at the front lines like a storm made flesh. Her spear cut through enemy ranks, her voice roaring commands that echoed across the fields. Ryan joined the defense teams, using his repaired energy generator to power the shield lines. He rerouted broken circuits, brought turrets back online, and turned abandoned weapons into traps. The enemy numbers were endless, but so was their Queen's fury. Hours turned into chaos. Smoke choked the sky, and the city trembled under the weight of destruction. Valkyra's guards fell one by one, yet she never retreated, never hesitated. Her people fought harder just by seeing her still standing. In the chaos, Ryan caught sight of Riza standing on a high tower, giving orders to the rebels. He felt the spark of anger flare in his chest. He grabbed a fallen rifle and ran through the burning corridors toward her. Inside the tower, the air was thick with dust and fire. Riza turned as he entered, her blade gleaming in the red light. "The Queen's pet dares to stand before me," she sneered. "How human of you." Ryan aimed the rifle. "You betrayed her. You betrayed your own people." Riza smiled coldly. "I saved them," she said. "She lost her purpose the moment she let you live." They fought. A clash of instinct and rage. Ryan ducked her strikes, firing short bursts, the plasma bolts burning the walls. Riza moved fast, faster than any human could. Her blade cut across his shoulder. Blood staining his sleeve, he gritted his teeth, grabbed a fallen energy core and smashed it against the floor. The explosion threw them both apart. Ryan crawled to his feet, smoke and sparks all around. Riza was pinned under a broken beam, her armor crushed. She glared at him with hatred but couldn't move. He stood over her, breathing hard. "You wanted to destroy her," he said. "But you only made her stronger." Before she could speak, the tower shook violently. An explosion ripped through the structure. The floor cracked. Ryan barely managed to jump aside as the tower began to collapse. He ran for the stairs, flames chasing him all the way down. Outside, the palace walls were falling. Valkyra stood surrounded, her armor scorched. Her spear broken in half, still she fought, using her bare hands, refusing to fall. When she saw Ryan running toward her, her eyes widened in shock and relief. "Ryan," she shouted, "get back." A massive blast hit the ground between them. The shockwave threw them apart. Ryan hit the ground hard, his vision blurring. He could barely see her through the smoke and dust. Soldiers swarmed around her, and then she was gone. When Ryan woke, the battle was over. The city was in ruins. Flames licked the horizon. The capital had fallen. He stumbled through the wreckage, calling her name. There was no answer, only silence. Only the smell of ash and death. For days he searched. Through broken towers and burning fields. He found wounded soldiers who whispered that the queen had been taken, captured by the rebel clans. Her banner torn down, her throne shattered. He refused to believe she was dead. He had seen the fire in her eyes, the strength that refused to fade. He gathered what survivors he could, loyal warriors, engineers, even civilians who still believed in her. Together they escaped the ruined city, hiding in the mountains where the air was thin and cold. There, under the ghostly light of Auralis's twin moons, Ryan made a promise. "I will find her," he said, his voice low but steady. "I don't care what I have to face, or how many worlds I have to cross, I will bring her back." The survivors bowed their heads. For the first time in their history, the warriors of Auralis knelt not before a queen, but before a man, a human who had earned their loyalty. From the ashes of betrayal, a new rebellion began to rise, one led not by bloodline but by hope. And as the night deepened, a storm began to gather on the horizon, a storm that would one day bring the queen home and show the galaxy that humanity's heart could burn brighter than any war. The wind howled across the frozen cliffs of Auralis. Snow drifted through the air like ash from old fires far below. Lights glimmered faintly in the ruins of the once great capital. Ryan stood at the mouth of a cave, his coat torn, his eyes hardened by months of struggle. Around him, hundreds of warriors stood ready, survivors who refused to give up, warriors who now followed a human. The rebellion had grown. Small clans joined his cause, bound not by fear but by belief. They called themselves the United Flame, and their purpose was simple: to find Queen Valkyra and restore her throne. For weeks, they searched through wastelands and abandoned fortresses, until finally a scout returned with news. "We found her," she said, breathless. "The queen lives, but she's being held in the Iron Arena." Forced to fight for the rebels' entertainment, Ryan's heart pounded. The Iron Arena was a fortress built into a mountain, surrounded by cannons and energy barriers, a place where prisoners were made to die slowly for the crowd's amusement. He looked out over his small army. "We go tonight," he said. "No more hiding, no more waiting, we end it now." The plan was simple but dangerous. They would attack during the blood games, when the arena was loud. Crowded and distracted, Ryan and a small team would slip through the tunnels beneath, while the others launched a full assault from the cliffs. When night fell, the mountains lit up with the glow of war once more. Explosions thundered across the sky as the rebels struck the gates. Inside the arena, thousands of spectators cheered as the next match began. Valkyra stood in the center of the sand pit, her armor broken, her body bruised, but her eyes still burned with the fire of a queen. Across from her stood a massive war beast, chained and raging. The guards laughed, expecting her to fall at last. But Valkyra moved like lightning. Her spear flashed. Cutting through the creature's leg, she rolled aside as it crashed down, dust rising around her like a storm. Even broken, she was unstoppable. Then the floor beneath the arena shook. Alarms blared. The crowd turned in confusion. From beneath the stands, an explosion tore through the wall, and through the smoke came Ryan, leading a squad of warriors. When Valkyra saw him, for the first time in months, she froze, disbelief flickering across her face. Then something rare, a smile, small but real. Ryan ran to her, tossing her a fallen guard's sword. "I told you I'd find you," he said. She gripped the sword tightly. "You always do the impossible," she replied, her voice rough but strong. Together they fought, back to back, blades flashing. The arena that had once been her prison now became their battlefield. The crowd fled in panic as their rebels' command fell apart. Outside, the United Flame stormed the gates. The mountain fortress burned from within. Riza's remaining forces broke under the combined fury of human strategy and Aurelian strength. Ryan and Valkyra reached the upper platform, where the rebel leader tried to flee in a transport ship. Ryan aimed a plasma rifle, firing a single shot that destroyed the engines. The ship exploded in mid-air, lighting the sky with fire. When silence finally came, the queen stood among the ruins, her sword dripping with blood. Around her, her people knelt once more. Valkyra turned to Ryan, her voice carried across the wind. "This war has cost us everything," she said, "but from its ashes, we will build a world that fights no more." She raised her blade high. "No more clans, no more slaves, no more blood for pride. From this day, we are one, and we will remember the man who showed us how to be more than conquerors." The crowd roared, thousands of voices crying her name, but this time they also cried his Ryan, the human, the flame-bringer. In the weeks that followed, the fortress became a new capital. Engineers rebuilt using both human and Aurelian technology. The world began to heal. Ryan stood beside Valkyra as she watched the sunrise over the horizon, her armor replaced by a royal mantle, her crown simple but radiant. "You could return to your people now," she said softly. "Your ship's beacon is fixed. Earth will hear it soon." He looked at the rising sun and shook his head slowly. "Maybe one day," he said, "but right now my place is here. You've got a world to rebuild, and I promise to help you do it." For a long moment, they said nothing. The wind whispered between them, carrying the warmth of the new dawn. Valkyra turned to him, her eyes shining. "You came from the stars," she said, "and yet somehow, you made me believe in something greater than power." Ryan smiled faintly. "And you showed me that strength isn't just muscles and weapons. It's standing up when everything falls apart." Their hands brushed in a brief touch, but enough to say what words never could. As the sun climbed higher, a signal shimmered faintly in the sky. The same beacon that had once called for rescue. Now it was different. The message was clear. Humanity had reached Auralis, and peace had reached them in return. The queen looked at the light, then at him. "What will your people think when they arrive?" she asked. Ryan chuckled softly. "They'll think they found a war world ruled by women," he said, "but they'll never guess who rules beside them." And as the dawn spread its light over the rebuilt city, the story of the man who crashed from the stars, and the queen who claimed him, became legend. A tale whispered across the galaxies, the tale of a human who taught a world how to feel, and a queen who chose love over war.